Hi guys, today in this video, I'm doing my eyeshadow palette, Declutter. This is all of them. There's drugstore, high-end, single shadows, indie brands, mainstream brands. It's a lot, right? Yeah. I don't really know how well this is gonna go. I'm sorry if you can see me, but like there's no room. So I think what I'm gonna do is split this up into groups so we're not dealing with a whole pile of shit right here, because this is a lot. So I'm gonna do that and we'll start. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense and you can see the palette. I'm working with a small space and there's a lot to go through, so bear with me. Okay, so I have Urban Decay, Anastasia, Beverly Hills, and ColourPop. This is the ColourPop Make Up Your Mind palette. I got this free when I made an order, and so I guess people on Instagram voted for their favorite shades to be put into a palette, and they made this 6-pan palette right here. This is the inside of the palette and the 6 colors that come inside. If you just look at them the way they are, you're like, what do I do with these shadows? And I kind of got that same vibe from it. So it has like a warm, kind of peachy, fiery shade. This one over here is like a deeper shade. It's kind of like a cool duochrome, almost like Glass Bull from ColourPop. And the yellow is really beautiful. The silver is really blinding. I haven't put this on my eyes, to be honest, yet. I haven't gotten around to putting most of it on my eyes. I've put the silver in the inner corner. And that was really pretty. I'm gonna keep this. I haven't really played with it yet. The Zodiac palette from ColourPop. This just came out in collaboration with kathleenlights, and I have yet to play with this either. I've only swatched some colors. So those are the 12 eyeshadow shades. They're really beautiful. They're all named after a different sign in the Zodiac. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm this purple right there. Before I did this declutter, I really didn't have time to play with it that much, so gonna keep it and play with it, and I'm very excited about it. I really think this is like a kind of unique palette. The other ColourPop palette I have is the All I See Is Magic palette. And this one came out in the their holiday collection 2017. This one, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure you can't get anymore. But I just loved like the tones in this. I love like the teals, and that has some warmer shades. It's really good to make smoky eyes, but you can also make, you know, like very neutral everyday eyes. So yeah, I really like this palette. I've played with it many times since, you know, last November or whenever I got it. But yeah, I really like this one. I wish it was still available, but you know, just the way it is. All right, then Anastasia, Nothing Is Leaving. And I have 3 of her palettes. I have the Soft Glam palette. And this one I've played with the least of the 3, but I love the tones in this. They're warm and neutral and just easy to use, very blendable. All blend together really well. They don't end up muddy or anything. Oh my god, I love this palette. And this is the Anastasia palette from 2017 holiday collection. It's called the Prism palette, and this is what this looks like. It has warm tones, it has cool tones, it has that pop of yellow, and it's a really decent like neon yellow. I love it. I love all the shimmers in here. They're very creamy and they look good on the lids. But like I said, it was limited edition, so you could maybe find it at like TJ Maxx or Marshalls. So if you're really interested in this, I would check there because, you know, it's discontinued everywhere else. The last Anastasia palette I have is the infamous Modern Renaissance. Very popular, has a lot of warm tones with pops of like berry. Ugh, so good. Such a good palette. I think I like Soft Glam better, just because I find that this is a little bit more limiting, but I love it still. You know, it doesn't discount the fact that I love this one, you know. This is an awesome palette, very blendable shades, and mostly mattes except for 2. And then the last little group in the first part is my Urban Decay palette. First I have the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette. I had been going back and forth between the original Naked and this Naked palette, but I went with this one. And I don't use it a ton, I have to say. It's probably one of my least used palettes, but I've been on a warm eyeshadow kick for a very long time, so that's probably why. Because this is a pretty much cool toned palette, but I think I'm gonna keep this just for the sake of I don't have a lot of cool eyeshadows, and when I want cool shadows, I go to this. This is the Naked Heat by Urban Decay. This came out last summer, and these are my tones. The very warm, intense red and brown shades. Oh, I love this palette. I know this got mixed reviews last summer when it came out, but girl, I don't know why, because I like it. This one actually has more mattes than any other Urban Decay shadow palette ever had, so I appreciate that as well. I whip it out in the fall, I whip it out in the summer, you know. It's a very versatile palette in my opinion, so keeping it. And last for Urban Decay, I have the Vice 2. Which came out quite a bit ago. Now this one I got a while when it came out. Oh, years ago. I just never really gravitated toward this palette. I know that it has a lot of jewel toned shadows that are good for like fall and winter. And then also it has some neutrals to use with the brighter colors. I just did not vibe with this palette. I don't know what could be changed about it, but I don't know. I'm just not getting any use out of it, so I'm gonna pass this one along. Okay, so this is the next pile of palettes to declutter. The first two over here are both by Studio Makeup On The Go. I got both of these in Epoxy Charm. This is the warmer palette of the two. They're not bad. I have to say, they're okay. They kind of remind me of like Coastal Scents shadows in a way, but the shimmers aren't pigmented enough for me. I like a really metallic lid usually. And I mean, the top three are kind of really similar to each other as well, so I feel like that was unneeded. So I'm gonna declutter this one. Then the Cooler palette has the same packaging as the first one, and this one has a really pretty dark plum. It has this pretty pink shimmer up here, and the one in the top middle is kind of matte and it has a nice cool transition. I haven't used it that much. I think I'm gonna keep this one. I think this is unique enough to keep, so that's gonna go in my keep pile. Then I have two Lancome palettes. I got both of these palettes last holiday season, so holiday 2017. So this is what the inside of the Day palette looks like. It has a blush and then 6 eyeshadows. The blush is not anything special, it's just like a rosy blush. The two next to the blush are more glittery, and then the other ones are just kind of satin or matte. I don't really like the glittery shadows because I find that the glitter falls down my face all day. The matte shadows are okay and they're creamy. I don't think this palette is particularly bad. I just don't use it. So I'm gonna get rid of this one, declutter it. And then the second one is the Night palette. But this one is a lot more unique and a lot more easy to work with. The blush is beautiful. It's kind of like NARS Orgasm, where it's like a peachy color with a golden shift, and then you have like a matte brow bone or to set the lid, and then you have pretty shimmers and also that deeper like bluish color to darken out the outer corner. So I think I'm gonna keep this one. I have the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Jelly palette. I love the packaging on this. It's just like a tin packaging with a magnetic closure. And this one, it smells like peanut butter, kind of peanut butter and chocolate I get the vibe of, but it smells great. I love the shades on the side. They're great either crease or lid colors or to set the lid. And I also love the warm tones in this palette. The purple could be a little better. It's not the best purple, but overall this is a good palette, so I'm gonna keep this one. Then the other Too Faced palette I have is the Too Faced Chocolate Gold Bar palette. This palette has a very big mirror, and I really like the packaging on this one as well. It's very sturdy and durable. This is a mostly metallic shimmery palette, except for the bottom, like big pan. Sorry, I'm blinding you. I can't really help it. I'm sorry. I mean, it's more a companion palette. It does have a couple mattes over here for the crease. Right here in this kind of corner has all the matte shades, and then the rest are shimmers. But the quality of this is really good. I really love to use this palette, and I've used it quite a bit, so I'm gonna keep this one. I have the Lorac Unzipped Gold palette. The inside looks like this. I'm gonna declutter this one. It's pretty easy for me to declutter it. I don't really love the shimmer metallic shades, and I feel like a lot of the shades are really similar to each other, so there isn't many looks I can get out of this palette, and it's not even one of my favorites, and I don't really reach for it, so I'm gonna declutter this one. I also have the original Lorac Pro palette. I picked up this palette when all of the reviews were coming in and people were loving it and saying it was a staple and everything like that. And while I think that this could work for multitudes of people, just because it does have matte and shimmer and it's pretty neutral every day, and also you can darken it up and make like a nighttime look or whatever. So I do see where people love it and get use out of it. And I don't think these are bad shadows by any means. They're fine. And it has different tones in it as well. But if I'm being honest, I just don't reach for it, so I'm gonna declutter it. Lastly, I have the Lorac Mega Pro 3 palette. This is what the inside of the palette looks like. And if you can tell, a lot of the shades are very similar. So whenever I use this, I get pretty much one look, which is kind of odd because it is such a big palette. But I also don't reach for very big palettes a lot of the times. A lot of the times I'll pick like an Anastasia, which has like 14 shades, or ones that have even less than that. So for me, this is just a lot of choices, but among the multitude of different, you know, pans of color, I don't really get that many different looks out of it. Again, it's not bad quality. And if these colors speak to you, I would definitely recommend it. But for me, I just don't reach for it, so I don't feel like I need to keep it. So I'm gonna declutter it. I just don't get along with Lorac shadows. Really. Moving right along, I have Kat Von D, Tarte, and Violet Voss. We'll start with Kat Von D, I suppose. This is the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye palette. Here are all the shades. They're all matte, and pretty much they're, for me, just like transition, setting the eyelid, and deepening colors, which I'm sure is the point of the palette. I like the formula of her shadows. I think they're great. I think that this palette is a great staple to have, especially if you have like colorful eyeshadow palettes and you need a palette that has like crease colors or blending out colors, deepening colors, that sort of thing. And for that reason, I am going to keep this one as well. Do I reach for it a ton? No, but I like to have it when I do need deepening colors and I'm using maybe an all shimmer palette like the Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette or something like that. So I'm gonna keep this one. Then I have a Shade and Light Eye Quad from Kat Von D. And this is the Sage palette. And here's what the inside looks like. It has a light cream shade, 2 shades that could be used in the crease, and then that green that obviously could be like your deepening up shade. Now, I don't know, this is the same formula as her Shade and Light Eye palette, so it is good quality, although I don't reach for it and probably shouldn't have bought it. I don't know, I just wanted something different in my collection and thought this would be it, but it's not. And I don't use it, I don't reach for it, and to be honest, it was a pretty penny. You can find these at like TJ Maxx and Marshalls now, I've seen, so I don't know if she's phasing these out, but they were kind of expensive for just 4 shadows. Good quality, but I just don't use it, so I'm gonna declutter it. Then lastly, I have the Holiday 2016, I believe, Metal Matte palette. So this was limited edition and you cannot get it anymore. So this palette is a big boy, okay? He is big. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the new Too Faced, what is it, like their birthday collection, or I don't know. It has like revamped shades in it and whatnot. I feel like this is just as big as that one. That's neither here nor there. This has a top row of beautiful metallic shades. They are all very beautiful and very like creamy, but also pigmented. And then the mattes that are on the bottom are also pigmented, but matte, not, you know, not shimmery or anything like that. I think there's a good array of colors in here. I can get tons of different looks out of it, and it was limited edition, so you're gonna have to pry this out of my cold dead hands because I think this is amazing. So if that wasn't clear, I am keeping this one. This is a Tarte Make Believe in Yourself eyeshadow palette. Here's what the inside looks like. But this has a lot of metallic shades, and I guess the middle is like a highlighter, but I don't really like it for that. I don't think that shade's good at all. And then it has like one matte shade to put in the crease. So I think this came out in spring of 2017, I believe. Anyway, I really love the formula of the metallics in this palette. It kind of reminds me of the Chocolate Gold by Too Faced. Some of them are very similar to that kind of texture and kind of look. And I do like the matte shade that is in here, so I'll use that, and then I'll just pick one or two shimmers to put on the lid or underneath like the little lash line and things. So I really like this Tarte palette, and I'm gonna keep it. Then this is another Tarte Rainforest of the Sea palette. This is volume 2. I got an BoxyCharm, and I was very excited to try it. And it's mainly like a cool shaded palette. I don't know, I don't find myself reaching for it a ton. But again, I don't have a lot of cool toned palettes, so I think I am going to hold on to this one. I have the Violet Voss and Laura Lee collaboration palette. You get a lot of mattes in this palette. It is a warm toned palette. It's, you know, nothing extraordinarily different from, you know, a ton of other palettes, honestly. But I do like the quality. I think it's really good. I think the metallic shadows do better with like a Fix Plus spray or things like that. If you really want them intense, and that's usually how I use them. But I really do like this palette, and I do pull it out from time to time. Then I have the Violet Voss Flamingo palette, which just came out this summer. And so this one is a complete 180 to the one I just showed you. This is an all colorful palette, pretty much. I wouldn't call it a rainbow palette. I think it does have kind of like a color like story going on, so it has like a tropical kind of feel to me. I've played with this quite a bit, and I feel as though the mattes are like impeccable. I think they're really easy to blend and really beautiful, and I like the matte brow bone color. I don't usually use blacks in the palette, but this one isn't bad. But I do feel some of the shimmers need some help in the fact that they're more sheer. So I don't know if they need help necessarily, but they're not like really intensely metallic, if that makes sense. So if that's something you're worried about, I'd go swatch it in the store if you can find it. But I do really like this palette, and I'm going to keep this one. Alright, this pile consists of 4 palettes that I have gotten in past BoxyCharm boxes. And I'm going to say right off the bat, I'm getting rid of all of them except one. So, the one I am keeping is this Blink Electric Eyes palette. I have the Coastal Scents Revealed Smoky palette. It's, I don't want to say a knockoff, but kind of like a representation of the Naked Smoky palette from Urban Decay. I kept this this long because I thought, hey, Susan, if you want to do a smoky eye, go to this palette. But what I realized is I can do a smoky look in a lot of other palettes I'm keeping. And the quality of this one just isn't as good as those either. So why am I keeping it? To hoard it? To collect it? I don't know, I just don't use it. This is also going, this is the collaboration with Pure and BoxyCharm. The packaging of this is really skimpy. Like, the cardboard doesn't bend, and if you try and bend it back too far, it doesn't close all the way because the magnet isn't strong enough. I don't know. That just kind of irritates me, but that's could be totally just me. The shades in this aren't terrible. The more pops of color on the bottom are kind of lackluster, in my opinion. And I do love the peachy shades, but the peachy shades are all really close in tone and color to one another. So I don't really see a need to have that many in one palette, you know what I mean? For me, the quality wasn't really up there, and packaging bugged me, and it wasn't anything unique. And then finally I have a Real Her palette. Just uninspiring, underwhelming. The quality isn't the best either. It's not worth it to me to hang on to this when someone else might like it better than me. Okay, now these are all of my small high-end palettes, these 3, and then these are my drugstore palettes that are small. This one is by Flower Beauty, and it is the Warm Neutral palette. Frankly, I don't understand where the name of the palette comes in, because these to me are like very cool toned shades. I don't know, to me it's just underwhelming. I don't know if I just can't use it correctly. You know, I don't want to try all these different types of ways and methods just to make a palette work. It's just not worth it to me. But maybe somebody else can use this palette. I do like Flower Beauty products, but this one was just a miss for me. This is a CoverGirl palette. This is the True Naked Goldens palette. Some warm neutrals and also some pops of like olive green. And when I talked about this palette previously on the channel, it was like in a favorites or something probably, because at one point I was using this so frequently. I really, really, really like this palette. I think it's a really good quality, especially for the drugstore, and you get a nice like selection of, you know, light to dark shades in this palette, so I would recommend it. So I am gonna hold on to this one. Alrighty, so I have the original Wet n Wild Comfort Zone palette, and I also have the new reformulated version of the Comfort Zone palette by Wet n Wild. With these, it's kind of tricky because this is older. I mean, it still works pretty well, but I don't reach for it a ton. But I do have the new one, and I think with the added mattes in there for the transition and outer corner and things like that, I think that's really a step in the right direction. I know a lot of YouTubers have already, you know, done videos comparing the two of these. And if you do want to see that, I can still do that for you because I do have some thoughts about the palette. I think I'm going to keep them for now. This is from Maybelline Eyeshadow. I pretty much picked up this palette, this little quad, because these are my tones. These are my favorite colors. Teal, mint, this like chartreuse color. They're all my favorite colors, and I think this palette is good. I don't think it's bad, but I'm not reaching for it. And I have the Violet Voss Flamingo palette, which has some similar shades to it in there, and I just don't need it. So this is the limited edition 6-pan eyeshadow palette that MAC came out with, you know, inspired by Cinderella. I wanted this palette because it had a lot of staple MAC shadows that people always talk about. So there is shadows in this palette that a lot of people have talked about and raved about and are staples in their collection. So that's why I wanted this, to be honest, because I don't have any single MAC shadows, or I might have one, but I didn't have any that were in this palette. So for me, it was worth the money, and I'm gonna keep this. This is my mini eyeshadow palette by Huda Beauty, and this is the Mauve Obsessions version. There are like 3 metallic colors, and then the rest are matte. There's that light all over setting, there's a transition, there are deepening shades. I think the quality of these shadows are fantastic, and I love this palette. It's actually one of my favorite palettes, and I really love the tones in this palette. I think it's good quality. She has quite a few of these mini palettes now, and I still definitely want to pick up the Coral Obsessions palette, so that will be mine at some point. But I really do like this palette, and I'm going to keep it. Then I have a Viseart Petite Pro palette. This is the Petite Pro 2. Top is matte, the bottom are shimmers. I think this is an all-around good palette. We have a review of this on our channel, as well as the Petite Pro 1. It's all in one video if you want to go watch it. But love this palette, and I'm really happy I tried this as my first Viseart palette, because the bigger ones are very, very expensive, and this one was a lot more affordable. The last section is my miscellaneous section, so the Zoeva Aristo palette, and we did review this palette as well along with another Zoeva palette, but I think this is a really good palette. I think the mattes are blendable. I think this periwinkle over here is very unique, especially to colors that I have. I think this is an all-around decent palette, and if you want to pick up a Zoeva palette, this one could be a good one if you like the tones in it. It's just a little hard to get here in the United States. You do have to pay a little bit more, but I don't know. I'm happy with this purchase, so I'm gonna keep that. I have Juvia's Place The Magic palette. We did a review of this brand as well on Test That Brand, our series. I think these are fantastic metallic shadows. The pigmentation is amazing, and the only gripe I have is like the bottom corner colors are very similar on the eye, but other than that, I would recommend this brand overall, and also this palette. This right here I have is by Style Essentials, and it's the All About Eyes palette. I don't know how accessible this brand is. We found this at TJ Maxx, boy, in the beginning of our channel. As you can see, there's a lot of shades in here, and a lot of them are reading very, very much the same. This is more of a subtle palette, if you can find it. I'm just gonna declutter it though. Right here I have the popular Jaclyn Hill palette by Morphe. I say I don't like bigger palettes, and I really don't most of the time, but this one I feel is a very good palette. The mattes are great, the shimmers are great. The only ones I have trouble with are just a few, which is pretty good for a palette this size. It does have pops of color. I can see why this is a very popular palette, because it is a good palette, and I wouldn't say anything too harsh about it, to be honest, because I do enjoy it. So I'm gonna keep it. Then lastly, I have this magnetic palette from Makeup Forever that I got off of the Sephora website. And I got this because I wanted to house all of my single eyeshadows, and this was a bigger size than any of my Z palette. But along with that, I have all ColourPop, Makeup Geek, some Ofra shadows, and the bottom three are from a BoxyCharm. I'm obviously gonna keep this. These are all singles. I'm not gonna waste my time getting rid of like single shadows. That's just not fun sounding to me. But is this the best declutter ever? No, I'm sorry. I can get rid of more than I did, but at the same time, I'm not sorry because I love these palettes. And I'm very happy with the amount I have. Now I can reorganize my life and these palettes, and I am good. So if you enjoyed declutter videos, I will leave the whole playlist down below in the description, along with all the palettes I talked about. So if you stuck around for this long, leave me a nice comment down below and like the video, and I will see you next time. Bye!